The Syracuse Sports Center starts now.
I think the locker room was the most excited I've ever seen our players in all the years we've been in there. Most years you think you're in or reality. But this one, when you're on the edge like this, it's one of those things where everybody's feeling.
There it is, Syracuse making the NCAA tournament. Yes, making the NCAA tournament when, 80% of prognosticators and predictionists and bracketologists did not think that they would make the tournament. SU ends up in, and that comment I heard from Jim Boeheim, I think among the most interesting that I heard up at the Mello Center tonight. We'll do a little special here. You can get your comments in on Facebook Live right there on our video, and make sure to leave comments. That's the only way to get involved in the show. Tweet at me as well if you'd like, but I'll be on the Facebook Live page for the majority of this time. And why don't we just start with that very simple point? They're in. Syracuse made the NCAA tournament. Which, look, is surprising to me. I did not think they would be in. I was resigned to the fact that they would not be in for, the last month to 6 weeks or so. I did not think that they had enough. And I didn't think they had enough going down to Brooklyn. I didn't think that one win against Wake Forest was really enough to get this team in. But it was, obviously. And, you can make a case against Syracuse. You can. There's a case to be made, and we've been talking about it for the last week. And the people on the selection show, I'm sure, talked about it a bunch while we were up at the Mello Center and hearing Coach Boeheim talk. But the fact of the matter is they're in, and they beat out Notre Dame, and they rightfully beat out Louisville as well. And they're going to go and play an Arizona State team that, who knows? Who knows what this team is going to be when they show up in Dayton on Wednesday night, right? That's the beautiful part of this. Arizona State has struggled a lot since the new year, and Syracuse is going to get them on Wednesday night in Dayton. So how did we get to this point? How is Syracuse in the NCAA tournament, and what's the overall reaction? Because I can tell you, sitting in the Mello Center, out in the hallway, we're watching. The media members were quite surprised, I should say. Media members were surprised. I did not think they were going to be in, and everybody I was standing around watching with were pretty surprised as well. I think that the players were caught a little bit off guard. We were standing in the hallway outside. Players obviously on the other side of the wall, in the gym, in a player lounge, whatever it may have been. We heard a roar from the other room. We heard a loud cheer from the other room erupt moments before we saw the Block S and Syracuse pop across the screen on the selection show. And I think that maybe it caught them a little bit off guard, which is why you heard the quote from Jim Boeheim that you may have heard, that you heard at the start of our little Facebook Live here. You heard this quote.
I think the locker room was the most excited I've ever seen our players in all the years we've been in there.
In all the years we've been in there, 42 years, this head coach is trying to bring teams to the NCAA tournament. 42 years. More than that when you factor in his years as an assistant. And he says that is the most excited they've been. I mean, that's remarkable. You look at this team. Young, with Merrick Dolezaj, Matt Moyer, and Pascal Chukwu playing their first real big minutes. O'Shea Brissett coming in as a true freshman, playing their first real big minutes. Now they're going to go get their first taste of March basketball. They're going to go get their first taste of the NCAA tournament. Tyus Battle. Frank Howard going to play his first real big, meaningful minutes in March. This team had every right to be excited. This team had every right to go nuts when their name popped up, when that Block S popped up on the screen. And you could see, just by watching, and we were doing it in the Mello Center, and I'm sure Jim Boeheim was as well, he noted that when he saw teams not pop up, he felt good. We were doing it. Oh, There's Oklahoma. Oh, there's Arizona State. Okay, maybe things aren't looking so good. Oh, but there's no Louisville. There's no Notre Dame. There's no Oklahoma State. Oh, maybe we're okay, right? Maybe this team is getting it. And I think that once you got past the St. Mary's, you were like, oh, okay. This team really has an opportunity to get in. And I think it's pretty remarkable. They go in as the 11. They're going to have to face this Arizona State team. And then we see what happens. They get old friend Jamie Dixon in the second round if they were to make it. We see what happens. Could this team make a run? I doubt it, but I didn't think they would make the tournament. So, what is realistic for this team? I have no idea. They play 6 people. They have nobody healthy. I don't know. But as one of our viewers here says, Jeff, mentioning the zone defense, always an advantage on short notice. Absolutely right. Absolutely right, Jeff. I mean, you look at the zone and you hear what Jay Billis says something from said something earlier in the year on this radio station on ESPN Syracuse when he was on with Brent Axe. You can go find it in the audio vault, but he said that Virginia and Syracuse and the way they play defense are are timing disruptors, right? They're just they're stylistically different and they're weird, and there's something about those two defenses, and I think that we'll see that with Syracuse. If they can win, maybe not this first game, right? Maybe not this second game against, Jamie Dixon. He kind of knows what you're going to do. But if you go any further, and it might bother Arizona State on Wednesday night, make sure you're commenting if you want to get some thoughts in. Jordan up in Vancouver asking who's going to be the biggest factor for Syracuse. It's Tyus Battle. Look, it's Tyus Battle, hands down. He's been their leading scorer all year. He's been their all-ACC player. He's been the best player on this team. There's no question in my mind. He's the guy that you want with the ball in his hands at the end. He is the biggest factor, bar none, on this team to see how far they can go, right? How far can this team make it in the NCAA tournament? That is up to Tyus Battle and what he does. It is. It's up to Tyus Battle, I think. I mean, look, is Marek Dolezaj an X Factor? Sure. Is O'Shea Brissett an X Factor? Sure. Is Frank Howard? Sure. But they need Tyus Battle to get his and do what Tyus Battle's going to do. From Gene, do you seriously think they belong in the NCAA tournament? Interesting question, Gene. Look, if you've listened to this station the last 2 weeks, you know I did not think they were going to make it. So for me to sit here and say, oh, yeah, that was totally earned and whatnot, right? I mean, you can make a case that other teams should have been in over them. I will not deny that. I mean, you can make a case that USC maybe, that a Texas or somebody like that should have been in the NCAA tournament over the Syracuse team. The 3 teams that I did not think had a case, really 4 teams that I did not think had a case, and I was happy that Syracuse got in over those 4, because then I really would have had an issue. I really would have had a problem. Middle Tennessee State, St. Mary's, Notre Dame, and Louisville. I thought they had no case to get in over Syracuse, to be totally honest. Syracuse had better wins. The losses for Notre Dame were worse than Syracuse's losses. The losses for St. Mary's were pretty bad. The losses for Middle Tennessee State, pretty bad. St. Mary's had 24 of their 28 losses against Quadrant 3 and 4 teams, where Syracuse had 13 of their 20. So I think that those teams didn't really have a case to be over Syracuse. There are other teams out there, they absolutely had a case to be made to put them in over SU. And if you want to make that case, that's fine, and I would agree with you. Probably on most counts. I mean, Baylor's in that conversation, Texas, USC. There are quite a few in that conversation that you could say should be in over Syracuse. Look, they're bubble teams for a reason. They're the 40th and 43rd and 45th best teams in the country. They're not perfect, right? That's why they're on the bubble. They're not perfect. Syracuse was not perfect this year, but they did enough. They beat Clemson. They went on the road and beat Miami. They went on the road and beat Louisville. That was enough this year. I think that's what it comes down to. James Millington, what seed will they be if they win on Wednesday? They're the 11th seed. They're the 11th seed in the Midwest region. That means they will go on to play TCU on Friday night in Detroit if they were to win on Wednesday. If things hold to form in the 3-14 game and Syracuse were to advance beyond the TCU game, that would mean that Syracuse plays Michigan State. So there's a tough road ahead, and that's a lot of games and not a lot of days. So we'll have to see what happens with this SU team. But an interesting draw, to say the least. Arizona State's a very interesting team to watch this season. They were really, really, really good at the beginning, and they have been really bad since about January 1st. No way around it. So can Syracuse take advantage and win? Look, Steve and I will break this down tomorrow. We'll break it down on Tuesday, and we'll keep it rolling then. But just rapid reaction here. I think that Syracuse getting in is a little bit surprising. I'm not shocked that they're in, but I thought they were out. And when the name popped up, I think that there was a little bit of surprise from everybody in the room. And I think that there was surprise if you go on Twitter and watch the video that Syracuse Athletics sent out. I think that you would be a little bit... I think that the room was a little bit surprised, to be totally honest. I think that the room, the players, were a little surprised based on their reaction, jumping up and down, tackling each other, hugging. And they deserved it. They earned it. But I think they were a little bit surprised that they got in. Jeff commenting again, for the 8-9 teams on the bubble, you can make cases for or against. Absolutely. That's why they're on the bubble, as I said before. James was hoping they'd be a 16 so they could be the first 16 to knock off a 1. Yeah, but that's not how the tournament works. They're seeded as an 11 in the playing game. So they'll be an 11 if they slide into the real bubble. They do match up okay, Jeff says, with Michigan State. Key is dealing with Jaren Jackson Jr. Yeah. That's getting ahead of ourselves. I'm not going to even think about a potential game against Michigan State 1 week from now. That is way ahead of ourselves. Let's stick with Arizona State. Let's stick with the possibility of Jamie Dixon lurking behind that on Friday night, and then see if Syracuse can go further. Because, look, the same problems are going to manifest themselves. The same problems are going to pop up for SU in this tournament scenario that have popped up all season long. And I'm sure this is something we'll talk about tomorrow and the day after on Orange Nation. But the problems with this team are depth and injuries and all these types of things, right? So playing potentially playing 3 games in 6 days is really going to be an issue for this team, I think. I think that could be a problem for this team. So there you go. SU is in. SU is in. And Jim Boeheim says that this team was as excited as any team in his 42 years. They made it. They did enough. And as Jim Boeheim noted, and I thought this was kind of funny, as Jim Boeheim noted, nobody sitting here talking about us fools in the media, right? Nobody sitting here thought they would make it. You are right, Jim. You are absolutely right. I don't think that there are very many people in that room who thought they would make it. I was not one of them. I did not think they were in the tournament, but here we are. So why don't we end on this note? Thanks to all of you guys who joined me tonight on this Sunday evening. End on this note. We get postseason basketball that we care about. This is going to be fun. I'm so excited. I'm glad that this team is in the tournament. It's more fun, right? We're not going to the NIT like last year where we collectively don't really care about how that team does in the NIT. Right? The fan base doesn't really care how a team does in the NIT. But they do care about the NCAA tournament. And that'll make it a whole lot more fun for us. That does it. We'll be back in the morning. We'll have coverage throughout tomorrow, throughout Tuesday, getting you ready for Wednesday night, Syracuse and Arizona State in the play-in game. The Orange has made the NCAA tournament. Thanks for joining me tonight. Talk to you tomorrow.